Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I know if you clicked on this video, you see the title and the thumbnail, and it says parking next to a hoopty is bad luck. And the thumbnail says it will make you poor. And I think this is what so many people want to believe or how they feel because we live in a very individualistic society where people have been sold the lie that there is an American dream and that it's possible to achieve the American dream, which is basically at this point, retirement is the American dream with a couple of nice things like a nice car and a nice house and maybe being able to travel and eat nice food. I think that's pretty much the American dream at this point. And most Americans can agree that that dream is literally a dream, but we are living in reality. So we have a lot of people who are borrowing the dream by financing cars and other things that they can't afford. So I think when they see something that they probably can afford, like a hoopty, which is probably more in their price range, or maybe a little bit better than the hoopty on this thumbnail and on this avatar, but some form of a hoopty, definitely not a 2024 car. Maybe more along the lines of 2013 or 14 is what a lot of people can afford, and I wouldn't call that a hoopty at all because I am a driver of a hoopty. Yeah, I am. And one thing I noticed driving a hoopty car is and let me say, I drive my hoopty car proudly because it's mine as opposed to other people driving cars that can be taken from them at any point. And when you financing a vehicle is not like paying a mortgage on a house. You don't obtain equity from financing a vehicle. If you can't pay that bill anymore, they're going to come and get it. Um, but I notice a lot of people where I live in an apartment complex. So my neighbors are regular people just like me. They may make more money than me, but I refuse to believe. As a matter of fact, I know that most people who live in this apartment complex, they don't make enough money to put a down payment on a house, let alone drive some of the cars that I see in the parking lot where I live. And I know that because I know people, such as my boyfriend, who makes a good amount of money. And dating somebody who makes a good amount of money, it gives you like a peek into the window of people who pretend to be able to live above their means, or not pretend, but they actually live above their means. And even my boyfriend, he's often like modern. These cars where you live is crazy to me, like, because I'm telling you guys, people have like Porsches, Jeeps, lots of Mercedes. I see lots of BMWs. Um, we have the regular cars like the Hondas and the Mazdas and the Kias and the Nissans, but they are all newer models. Because I think people feel like, they want to feel rich. They don't want to feel how the reality is, which is not the reality is wouldn't be a person who has to make payments on a nice car. Like, I think Jay-Z said one time, he was like, if you can't afford to buy something twice, then you can't afford it. And I already know a lot of these people, they definitely cannot afford to buy their cars twice. And so when they see me in my hoopty or beater or whatever you want to call it, beater, that's what I was that's what it was being called when I was first looking into buying a used car. And when I was first buying my car, I had another hoopty beater type car, and I hated that car. It was my first car, and I absolutely hated it because I just felt poor, which I was, but I didn't want to feel that way. Even though I was super, super happy when I first got it, because I was like, yeah, I finally got a car, and nobody in my family at the time except my older sisters had cars. Like my mom, my dad didn't have a car. My grandma did have a car, but one of my other grandmas didn't have a car. I basically grew up in a family where, we caught the bus everywhere. Like, you know, so for me to buy any car, I was so happy to get off the bus and so proud of myself. But the world has a way of telling you or making people believe that what you have is not good enough. So even though I was happy to buy my first car, I thought that it wasn't good enough because that's what people told me and that's how they made me feel. Um, but now I feel much different. You know, I had that car for about 5 years and it broke down like any car does. I had to get it fixed a lot. That's just the nature of having a car. You're gonna have to get things fixed. And it was some other things wrong with the car that I really didn't like. But in any event, it was good transportation. It got me where I needed to go to and from work, and I traveled a little bit in that car as well. Um, So I had made the decision to, you know, not have a car for a couple of years. And I think it felt like longer, but I think, let me see. I think I didn't have a car for about 4 years. Yeah. I think I didn't have a car for about 4 years. Wow, and that was one heck of a time. Like it didn't bother me at first, but then eventually I was like, yeah, I want a car. And I started doing gig work. Like if you look on my channel, you can see that I do Uber Eats. And I wanted to start making money, doing gig work. So I had to start renting cars, and that was super expensive. And I wanted my own car. And so I looked into buying a car. Um, I didn't want an older car like the one that I had before, my first car. I didn't want a car like that one. So I looked into financing a car. Now, obviously, I did not have a lot of money, so I definitely was not looking into getting a brand spanking new car. I was looking into getting something used but newer than the car that I had already had. And then once I saw that a lot of the used cars at the time when I was looking, the prices were crazy. I'm talking about like a 2009 car that had like 250,000 miles on it. And they wanted that thing after it was all said and done, after I was done paying the payments and with the interest and the down payment, it would have been equal to like $10,000, you know? And I had to sit down and have a talk with myself. And I was watching a lot of Dave Ramsey at the time too. And so I had to sit down and have a talk with myself and say, you can't care what other people think, because you don't want to be like these people who are going into debt trying to impress people that they literally do not even know. And if the people you do know, if you are trying to impress people that you do know with things that you have, like your car, those people are not your real friends. Like, outside of a dating situation, especially if you're a woman. I'm a woman, and anybody judging a woman based off of what she drives, I already know, like, you probably cannot even afford to date me, because any man who has a substantial career, he might see a woman he likes and not care what kind of car she's driving and say, I like her, I'm going to upgrade her if he wants to. But yeah, I just wanted to make this little video because, I wanted to believe that people were not this shallow and stupid, as to judge somebody based on what kind of car they are driving, especially when a lot of people I know are paying car payments. Like, I know they are. Like, if you have a fully paid off Jeep, Mercedes, BMW 2024, whatever, and you're living in an apartment, something is wrong. Something is not adding up. So I know a lot of people, they're living on bills. They're living on payment plans. Um yeah. Ooh, excuse me. And I was having this conversation with someone else earlier about, the unlivable wages. Like, please go on my channel. If you're just coming across this video, go on my channel and check out my videos, check out my community section. I have lots of posts on my community section about, the unlivable wage crisis, the unaffordable cost of living, and things of that nature. And, a lot of people are going into debt, signing up for things that they can't afford because they want to feel closer to the upper class, when you shouldn't have to go into debt to feel like you are closer to the upper class. Either you aren't or you are. And if you feel like you want to be at a comfortable place where you actually can afford a brand new car and purchase a home, your problem is not somebody who is driving a hoopty. Your problem is with somebody who you probably are too coward to stand up to, which is these big companies and corporations and the government. But instead of, you know, frying bigger fish, people would rather pick on somebody who is below them. Now, me, I don't care, because I already know people who think that way are not intelligent. So it doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is people are focused on the wrong thing, like feeling as if parking next to a hoopty is bad luck, or it's going to make you poor, or whatever, whatever, as opposed to the government, who is knocking you, the regular person, over the head with taxes and these jobs who will not pay you your worth. So you feel like you, instead of actually going to these companies and telling them, hey, it's time for you to increase these wages, instead of doing that, you guys are taking out loans and financing material things that you cannot even afford.